All right. Welcome back, everyone. We got another awesome episode for you today. If you haven't yet already, make sure you join our Facebook community, Beneath the Helmet Facebook group. That's a great place to share, network, communicate with other fellow firefighters, first responders across the globe, honestly, where we get a chance to share and tell stories, ask questions with all like-minded people. So be sure to check that out. There will be a link in the show notes for you. Today, I got a chance to sit down with the author of Own It and also the podcast host of Ignited. And also, he's a coach in the fire service as well, just like myself, who works on supporting other first responders live their best lives, live their best careers, thrive, and actually find out what their passions are in life. And he really focuses on his passions. He's a 20-year firefighter, family man, and he lives out of Arizona, USA. And today we got a chance to sit down with Ryan Rodriguez. He is the author of the book Own It. It's called Own It, Build a Fire Service Culture of Trust and Integrity Through Accountability. So we're going to dive into several topics in his book. We're going to talk about his framework around his coaching style and his philosophy around coaching. A little bit about his framework that's called FIRE, F-I-R-E. And we're going to dig into each of those components. We're going to sit down and have a great chat about systems, about his book, about his podcast, and about building structures in your life to thrive. So hope you enjoy this episode. Grab a pen and paper, take some notes. Until next time, stay well.
It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired Fire Chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
Welcome back, everyone. Another great conversation on Beneath the Helmet Season 2. So today I got a chance to stand with Ryan Rodriguez, firefighter down in the States. So welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about who Ryan is and kind of where you came up through the ranks and kind of what brought you to what you're doing today.
Okay. Well, it's an honor to be on the show, Chief. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to talk about what it is I'm trying to work on. So my name is Ryan Rodriguez and I live and work in Arizona. I'm just outside of Phoenix. I live in Gilbert, but I work in an area called Gold Canyon, which is probably about like 30 minutes away from me. So I actually don't work in the area that I serve. But I've been there for close to 20 years. I've been married for 24 years now. I've got 3 kiddos. My oldest is 19. He's out in the world doing his thing. But all my kids are drivers. So that's really handy at this point. But,
Totally.
But yeah, I've been a firefighter paramedic for about it'll be 19 years in July. So I'm coming near the end of it where I have to start making some decisions on what I want to do, but, which sounds kind of weird.
Yeah.
But no, it was always my dream to become a firefighter since I was in high school. I didn't really have a plan per se as what I wanted to do for a career. And there was a vocational school, technical school by where I lived, and they offered a class for firefighting. And I was like, you know what? I only have half a day of classes. This was during my senior year. I was trying to map out my senior year of high school. I had only a half day of classes. The remainder of the day was wide open. I worked at night, so I had this perfect window to just do something. And I was like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's try taking that class and see what it's all about.
Right.
And, from there, it was just, the fire was lit. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Like, I get to serve people in a multitude of different ways. And, who doesn't want to ride around on a fire truck and help people all day? Like, it was the dream job. And so I really was just focused on that. Tested and I tested and tested. And at the time, testing was very competitive. Thousands of candidates for 3 positions or whatnot. But after a few years of just actively testing, I was able to get hired full time. And since then, I've just been hunkered down, focused on my career and improving myself intellectually and physically, and trying to play the infinite game, as Simon Sinek says, and just kind of stay in it as long as I can. I look for ways to contribute what I can. I became a certified personal trainer through my organization. They sponsored me for that, due to my own health and fitness journey. And so I was able to construct a fitness plan for my organization that still exists. It's a resource for all of our members. And then, I was hired full time in 2005. And so I was really just kind of focused on getting really good at what I was doing, honing in my skills. But about 2015, 2017 came around, and I was getting into like statistics and kind of looking within fire service organizations and seeing what challenges that we are facing as a whole. And I learned that in 2017, it was the first year that the suicide rate among first responders, particularly firefighters, surpassed line of duty deaths. And it's kind of a weird statistic because, it just shook me a little bit, because both of those things are bad, right? Like both of those things are bad. But the fact that we were taking ourselves out at a higher rate than our environment and our job and all the risk factors that we faced really shook me. And so I decided to start becoming a part of things like the peer fitness team, learning more about resiliency, strategies for effective, mental health and wellness. And I was gathering all these resources, and I was like, why don't I do something where I can put this out? I need to put this out to people. All of these resources and all this information that I'm learning needs to be put out to people so that they can kind of get a handle on what's going on. And if they're feeling lost out there and floundering around, they have some kind of resource. So I started the Ignited Firefighter podcast back then. And I was doing weekly shows up until just this last year, which right now I'm doing bi-weekly shows, but weekly shows on different things like goal setting, physical fitness, eating right, mental health, cold plunges, basically anything that I was interested in as a firefighter and I felt a benefit from, I wanted to put out there. And so I was really just focused on gathering information and dispersing it to an audience. And so that was my goal with Ignited. I actually started a company, and a podcast is a part of that. Then later on, just a few years ago, I was able to publish my first book. I had, with all the research that I had done, I was looking into, hey, there it is. That's it. Yeah.
There it is.
I was looking into the reasons as to why people felt driven to go the route of suicide. They didn't feel that there were resources available. They didn't understand that they weren't alone in a lot of the ways they were feeling. And one of the biggest main underlying factors from all of these people's stories and all the people that I was reaching out to, one of the main factors, if not the number one common denominator, was accountability or a lack thereof within the fire service. And it might have been a lack of accountability within their environment, whether it was like poor practices being performed where they're at, or a lack of accountability with standards, across the board. And so it just decimated the integrity of the system. And as that integrity goes away, so does trust. Like no one looks at a rickety old bridge and thinks, oh, I'm totally going to cross that. You don't trust it. You just don't trust it. But when you see something like Golden Gate, you're like, okay, yeah, it's tried and true. I can go across that thing. So it really pushed me to gather all of my resources into a book. I published the book. It did pretty well, and it's still doing pretty good. But the goal is to just be an asset. That's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an asset to the organization that I serve with, and then the people that I serve. And people that I serve, and the people that I serve with. So in all aspects, I'm just trying to provide uh, assets, provide resources, and being a resource for people in their time of need, like figuratively and literally.
Yeah, isn't that such a gift to be able to curate knowledge and disperse it to the organizations that to listen to you or that you work with? Like honestly, being able to share your knowledge is a gift. I think
Oh,
so. Kudos to you for being one of those ones that we need in the fire service to share
thank
the
you.
knowledge. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Awesome. And for the listeners, it's his birthday today, and he's joining me on a podcast. So that's pretty
I'm
impressive alone.
excited. I'm excited.
So what was it that sparked this writing this book? Like was there an actual incident that occurred? Not an incident per se, but like a spark in time that ignited this book.
Ooh, nice. Not good. I like it. Good word usage. Honestly, it was I was kind of ignorant to it at first. I had my own frustrations within the fire service. I had my own uh, issues that I was trying to comprehend. And so I was doing research on those things. Then when I learned about the statistic of suicide, I dove into that as well. And then it got to a point where the things were bleeding over. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm feeling a lot of the same frustration because we're having people get put on the truck who don't meet the physical standard, or they don't meet the educational requirement, or this and that. And so the integrity within the system had been declining, had been completely being decimated. And so morale goes down, trust goes down. Nobody really wants to come to work. All of those things were happening. And I saw a lot of those commonalities through my story and the story of these other people. And I'm a journal taker, a note taker. And so I write in a journal a lot. And so I'm writing all these notes, and I've got what I had called like a leadership journal. And I'm just writing down these notes of like little pearls of wisdom that I'm identifying. And I would bring this journal with me to different symposiums and conferences. And the more conferences that I was interested in, the more I realized it was all about mental health, awareness, resilience, all of that. And so as I'm writing these notes, I didn't realize that there was like a common theme kind of coming out naturally. And it was my wife. She saw my journal and was like, "Oh, this needs to be a book.
Awesome.
Like you need to put all of this stuff in a book." And then, so that's kind of where it sparked. And I was like, wow, do I really have enough to make a book? And, the answer is yes. And I outlined it all, and it just kind of clicked and fell all into place in the outline. And as I did that, I was really inspired to flesh it out with uh, statistical resources that I had learned, or numbers that I had learned about. And then also like my own anecdotes and my own ideas and thoughts about the topic. And so that compilation really is just what produced this book. And so all of the different chapters are broken down to, that flow of ideas. And so once you break the seal, you kind of start getting ideas for other ones too.
Oh
And
yeah,
so I was
you
like,
got that
well,
right.
I'm still going to follow the same note-taking process.
Mhm.
And so now I have all these other notebooks and journals that I'm looking to work into a book somehow as well. So,
Beautiful. Yeah, I think for those who are listening right now, that is the best way to get your book started is to journal. Uh,
100%,
yeah, I just
100%.
recently bought a Kindle Scribe, which is just amazing. And
Nice.
yeah, it's never ending notebook. It's a never ending
Oh,
notebook. That's just
love it.
unbelievable. And it's just like writing on paper.
Nice.
So yeah, journaling, and that's how I wrote my book, was just filling out a ton of different journals, and that is how I brain dumped my everything that was going on in my brain, right? So yeah, if you're struggling to write your own book, that's definitely a good way to start for sure.
Yeah. Make the notes,
Yeah.
make the notes.
Yep, you got that right. Our brains don't last that long. Our
True,
memory,
true.
yes. So in the book, I really noticed a lot about accountability, and you already mentioned that briefly. Tell us what accountability means for you in the fire service in your terms.
Okay. So I think one of the easiest ways to to relate that is through physical performance. I feel like the bare minimum entry ticket to entry for the fire service is the physical fitness. If you're not physically able and capable to perform the duties of a firefighter, you just shouldn't be on the truck, because the public trusts us to perform these duties. And if we can't do that, then we have no right to be on the truck. Right. And so once you have standards that decrease to allow people to, like right now, there's a big recruitment and retention issue among the fire service. And so we see a lot of organizations lowering standards for the sake of getting people hired on. And when you do that, when you lower your standard, you increase the liability. And as you do that, your integrity goes down. We as the fire service, we make promises to the public. We make promises to the people that we serve. And if we denigrate our standards and out of the other side of our mouth, make all of these promises, we are operating out of integrity. We are not in that integrity bubble anymore. And there goes the trust, really. Once people start making the connection that, oh, they're promising this, but they're not delivering that. When you have a bunch of overweight firefighters who, are walking examples of heart disease, get off the fire truck, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I mean, when they call 911 and the fire truck shows up, they want 4 high performance athletes or 4 or 5 high performance athletes to come off who are strong, capable, knowledgeable. And that just kind of tears off of what I was saying. Like the bare minimum for entry is physical ability, but there's a huge mental element to this job as well. I mean, we have to understand the science of fire, the science of smoke patterns, vent flow, all of these things, combustion, what that means, what it looks like, how to read smoke, all of these different things that go into it. And when we lower those standards, we're not holding ourselves accountable to that standard. We're changing things based on need instead of holding to a code that has been established for decades, and in the fire service. And so as we hold fast to our standards, we can hold each other accountable to that. Like this is the standard and you need to meet it. And we're going to help you meet it. We're not going to lower the standard for your sake, but we're going to help you when we're going to build you to be who it is you need to become to do this job. And I feel like we're seeing a bit of a pattern in the opposite direction. We're lowering standards to get people in the door instead of providing the people who want to do this job the resources to get to where they need to be. And that's really what I'm really trying to shine a light on through this book.
Beautiful. So paint us a picture, what would happen if we continue to water down our standards and accountability? What will the fire service look like in a couple of years?
Oh boy. I think the recruitment retention numbers right now are kind of already showing that denigration, that pattern of inconsistency and lack of standard. And I love the fire service. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. I've really given a lot to it. Every college degree I have an associate's, a bachelor's. I'm working on a master's right now. All of it is relative to the fire service. And so I really have a passion for it. And I hate to see it basically be something that people just aren't interested in doing anymore. Like I'd mentioned, when I had tested for my position, I think there were 3,000 candidates for 3 positions. And now we're lucky to get like 130 applicants. You know what I mean? And so the numbers are just not there because the interest isn't there. And I think it's because we're kind of cutting our own throat when it comes to this standard. People used to look at the fire service and I'm not saying that it's this way from now on, but what I'm saying is like people used to look at the fire service and firefighters as like strong heroes of the community, male or female, strong heroes of the community that have integrity, principles, and core values. And this is how they operate. And I feel like as organizations are willing to sacrifice and put their core values and standards on the table just to get people in, I think it's just going to reinforce that negative infinity loop. Instead of establishing a hard line and a principled line of core values and standards and inspiring people to meet them, we're lowering them. And so I think what you'll see is, unfortunately, I feel like there's going to be significant effects with members of the fire service when it comes to morale, when it comes to moral injury, when it comes to interest in wanting to stay. You know, and I kind of joke, I'm at 19 years. I can technically retire at 20 if I want. I can also go another 25. I can go to 30 if I choose, but 20 is kind of the marker, right? Where I can make some choices whether or not I want to leave. And more people are choosing to leave at 20 instead of staying for 30 or even 35. It's not a career where you're really going to stay in it until you're like 65 or 70, right? Like people, it's kind of a concentrated career. And it's because our job is so risky. You know, there's so much risk to it, and it does take a toll, the shift work, all of that. But I think the things that inspired me and attracted me to the fire service are some of the things that might be scaring people away, like the cancer issues, the mental health issues. You know, when you read other statistics about divorce among the fire service community is one of the top 5 in the nation, or, you know, in North America. And so when you see these things, it's just not inspiring people to want to be a part of it. And it's like, I don't want to have to sacrifice my family and my core values and beliefs as a person to get a job that's probably going to kill me in one way or another, you know? And I feel like that's the mentality. And I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors, because it isn't, while at the same time, it's important to share these statistics, we also need to show what we're doing about it. Instead of just sharing the statistics and putting it out for everybody to see, we need to show what it is that we're doing to save our own people and to protect ourselves and stay in that game.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, because if you look at the news or you read any books, it's all doom and gloom about the fire service, right? You're going to get cancer,
Totally.
you're going to get PTSD, you're going to get cancer, you're going to get divorced. It's like, yeesh,
Yeah.
these are not gifts of the fire service, that's for sure. So
Right.
yeah, I agree. It's organizations need to show that they're, doing the hard work to protect the firefighters, right? To make sure
Right.
that they have a long, healthy career.
Mm-hmm. And doing the job, I think, is a reward. To me, it's a reward in itself, doing this job, because this career has allowed me to have some amazing experiences, provide for my family, have an amazing schedule. I work a 48-96 schedule. So I'm on for 2 days and then I'm off for 4. And I love it. I only drive to work, 5 days a month.
Mhm.
It's fantastic. And I love it. But now we have to understand that, as it used to be, like, doing the job was the honor enough. It should have been enough for you. Yes, you get paid. Some people don't. Some people are volunteers, and those people harbor that passion, and I harbor it as well. But we're in a time and place now in the fire service where it's got to be more than that. We need to show people that we're caring about our people, and that, we're not just tossing them to the wolves, because sometimes we have issues where people are choosing to leave. I mentioned the recruitment and retention. The retention side is that people are choosing to leave. They're choosing to leave sooner. They're retiring sooner. They might just leave before retirement. And we have people leaving to go do either, to go work for a different organization, the different fire service organization, or a different career path altogether, because they've just had enough. They've just had enough, the incongruency.
Yep.
So it's really sad to me to see that. So I'm really trying to shore up the fire service community and provide some resources, because we have to be adaptable. I mean, in any fire that you run on, the name of the game is adaptability. Any EMS call we run on, it's adaptability. We have to identify a baseline, a level of awareness, and then we have to measure trends as they happen in real time. And we're so good about that on EMS and fire calls. We're so good about doing it there. Why can't we do it organizationally? Why can't we get a baseline sense of where our people are as an organization in-house, and then make adjustments live time, instead of just being like, well, you signed up for this, so you got to deal with it. you know.
So if you had to create your very own firefighter, what would be some traits that you would look for in that firefighter? You talked about physical fitness. I'm assuming that's one of them. But what else
Mhm.
would you look for in a firefighter to have a long, healthy career?
That's a good question. One of my personal credos I live by is civilize the mind, but make savage the body. And it's a samurai proverb.
Yes.
And to me, that's a perfect uh, representation of the fire service because, like I mentioned, we have to have a certain level of intellect and understanding. We have to have a certain level of like emotional and mental fortitude to do the job and intellectual awareness of how things work. And I mean, being a paramedic, going to paramedic school and learning about the body and cells and, all of these different things and how the drugs work and why they work and what's happening in the heart and the brain. There's a huge element of, of, of intellect that needs to be applied. But at the same time, I need to be able to smash a door in and I need to be able to cut that car in half and I need to be able to carry these people out if they go down in a fire. My brother next to me who weighs 220, not including his gear and his tank and all that stuff. I got to be able to pull that guy out if he goes down and I have to trust him to do the same. So that really is something that drives me. But honestly, I think it's a little bit more than that. And I think that's what we need to start paying attention to. Um, I have a coaching group, as you know, called The Forge. And in that group, we focus on four main elements, four flames is what I call them. And it's fitness, intellect, relationships, and energy. And I feel like just like four legs of a table, right? You need these four pillars to keep you up. And I'm not saying balanced as like a past tense or balanced as something you're just going to achieve and then move on. But just like balancing on one foot, there's constant micro corrections that you need to take, right? It's not just a one and done. You have to constantly be managing these things. And so, of course, there's the fitness element. You have to make sure that you're taking care of your body to be able to perform the work that you're required to perform. Intellect, you should always be learning something new. There should always be something. I mean, and that's why we train in the fire service, right? Things have changed so much, just even in the time I've been in it. We've seen the birth of these electric vehicles and now there's a whole new mentality in regards to that. Materials inside homes have completely changed. And so what used to take 12 minutes to ignite and fully become ignited in the room now takes 3 minutes. So we have less time to do things. We have to be faster, more efficient. Relationships is a huge one because really as firefighters and EMS workers and public safety workers, we're in the business of people, externally and internally. We have to live with these people. No other profession, save it for military. Are you living with people for days at a time? And we have to make sure that we're able to have healthy confrontations. We need to make sure that we have conflict resolution, that we can live with each other. We don't necessarily have to love each other per se, but we have to be able to come together and perform the mission and complete the task. But the relationships thing also goes to inside out, right? That's inside us working with each other, but it has to go inside out as well. Like we have to be able to deal with the public when they're upset. They don't call us on their best day. Most of the time, it's their worst day of their life. And so we have to be able to mitigate that, to have empathy, to be understanding, to be gentle. And then on a third tier of that, we have families of our own. We have families of our own that didn't particularly sign up for this job. I signed up for this job, but my kids didn't. My wife didn't particularly sign up for this job. I'm supported in my career, absolutely. And there's a great level of understanding there, but they don't deserve to have the negative effects that I may feel from my career put on them. And that's a whole other level too, which is why I said, we have those four elements. Relationships is huge, huge. among my coaching group and among the fire service in general. It's what we deal with. Um, and then the last flame, the last fire flame is energy. And I think of energy as what it is that fills your cup. We cannot pour from an empty cup. We just can't do it. And that is, like you talked about in your book, burn around the edges. You talked about, you just can't give if you haven't given yourself anything to give. And that's what causes burnout. That's what makes someone burn out, is because they've just given too much and they have nothing coming in. And so this, energy flame is the idea that there's something that you love to do that inspires you, that rejuvenates you, whatever it is. If it's hiking, if it's going to church, if it's being around people, if it's being away from people, whatever that thing is that gives you energy, you have to pay attention to it. You have to keep your fire lit, because only that, yeah, there it is right there.
Whatever sets your soul on fire.
100%, because you can't hold two burnt out candles together and expect a flame to happen. You have to have one that's lit. There has to be a source, right? And so the energy element is you basically connecting to your source, however you might do that. If it's going camping alone for a few days and just being out in the wilderness, cool. But there has to be something established. I think it was James Clear who said it in his book, Atomic Habits. Like, we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our systems. And so if we can establish a system for ourselves to operate on a daily basis, not only will we become stronger, we will grow intellectually, our relationships will improve, and the energy source will remain a constant, but we will be able to share that with other people. And it's by sharing that flame, by sharing that fire, that it will help build us all up. And it's just that system that you work every day. And it, like I said, it's the consistency of the system. It's not one day I'm going to do this and not the other, maybe today I'll slack on this thing. And it's difficult. It's very difficult to be consistent. But what I suggest and what I talk about in my coaching group is we break the year down into quarters. Okay. So 3 months at a time. It's great to set yearly annual goals, but at the same time, like you and I both know that when people set goals in January, right, the New Year's resolutioners, which is not a bad thing, but what typically happens? People typically go about 2 to 3 months at the most, and then they fall off. All right. Well, if you break the year down into quarters, we can maximize that 2 to 3 months. We can focus on a specific goal in each one of those fire categories, and then we can have our benchmark. And then quarter 2 comes around, and we can have a whole new set of goals if we want. And it's like starting at January 1, right? It's like starting at the new year all over again. And so this is a system that I've been working for several years, and it has really allowed me to accomplish amazing things. Like it allowed me to accomplish writing this, it allowed me to do things like the podcast. I'm a full-time firefighter with a business, international coaching business, who has written a book, currently in a master's degree. I've got 3 teenage kids and a wife, like I'm doing all of these things. And a lot of people are like, oh, I just don't have time. But it's at the same time, I'm like, I get that, but you're not making the time. Like, how much time are you sitting in front of the TV versus going for a walk or this and that? It really comes down to your priorities and the system that you have in place. And so I kind of tease the system in the book. I'm in the process of writing another one right now that is all about just the fire framework and the fire system. Cool. So that's coming out next, but, it really is the system has to be workable. It has to be clear and workable. And if we can establish those, something as simple as, let's say, if you want to become more fit for the quarter, and your goal that you want to do that is you're going to walk a mile every day. Okay. The very least thing you can do is set your shoes out the night before. that takes such little effort, and just by doing that one little thing, and this is kind of what James Clear talks about in his book, Atomic Habits, just by doing that one little thing on the front end, you're setting up these visual cues and these emotional cues that like, oh, I've got my shoes out. Let's put them on. Let's go. Let's do the thing. And I keep mentioning his book because right now in my coaching group, The Forge, we are reading Atomic Habits, and that's the book that we're focused on. I create a workbook for each reading selection we do for each quarter, but so that one's really at the forefront of my mind right now. But yeah,
Cool.
again,
That's a great book.
we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our systems.
Yeah, it's a great book. I'm just reading a book called 12 Weeks. I'm not quite sure who the author is, but 12 weeks, and basically the same kind of concept. Every 12 weeks is a calendar year, essentially, in
Yeah,
your habit building. So every 12
100%.
weeks, yeah, you just recycle and you go back, okay, what's my goals? What's my vision for the next 12 weeks?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
people are
The
allowed
12,
to kind of stay committed to that for 12 weeks versus, having an annual goal, like you mentioned, right?
yeah. The one that really inspired me was the 12-week year. And that
Oh,
helped me. I think it's on my bookshelf here
that,
somewhere, but
that might be even the same book. Yeah,
oh, with Brian Moran. Yeah.
I believe so.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think
I
so.
think
Yeah. 12
it's
weeks.
back here somewhere,
Yeah. It's a good
but,
book.
yeah, and that's really what inspired me to structure it
Oh, funny.
in that pattern.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so that's where my system is based off. It's based off the 12-week year. And they talk about breaking it down into quarters like that
Mm-hmm.
because, that's what Fortune 500 companies do and everything, right? But in the fire service, we don't think that way. We think of like our next shift,
Yep.
right? That's really it. We don't think in terms of quarter because we don't have to deliver numbers every quarter. We don't have to, we don't have shareholders and stock and that we have to report on.
But on the
But
flip side, if you're a
by,
fire chief, you're
yeah,
also thinking yearly. You're not thinking quarterly as well, right? So still on that
100%.
at that level, you're still thinking, okay, 2023 goals. What's our goals this year versus
Yeah.
what's our goals for the first quarter? Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things they talk about that I love so much is that, it's fine to think on that annual yearly basis, but when you break it up into quarters, there are no surprises at the end of the year because you've been paying attention and measuring those things, and what gets measured gets improved.
Yep.
So if you're continually measuring it and keeping an eye on it, there won't be any surprises. So by the end of the year, if you've completely blown your budget or you haven't been paying attention to spending, it's not a big shock. It's not like, wow, it's November and December and we're way over, or we're way under, where you will have had your finger on the pulse. Right. And it's funny because I mentioned that we're great at adapting in the moment, like when it comes to fires and EMS calls, but why can't we apply that same mentality to in-house topics? Like, do we just show up on an EMS scene and look at someone and be like, oh, they need to go to the hospital. And then we put them in an ambulance and we don't touch them. We don't evaluate them. We don't check vitals ever again. We just load them and take them. Maybe there are some organizations that do that, but if you want to be like a good paramedic and do your due diligence, you're constantly reevaluating, you're reassessing their vitals, reassessing their pain levels, reassessing their breathing, their lung sounds, how they look, their EKG, all of these things, you're continually reassessing. And that's the system that we have in place. And so just to reiterate, the whole idea of systems is like breaking it up into this quarterly format and having 4 specific things. But I like thinking of it as legs of a table, right? Because it's not going to stand. You can have a 3-legged table, but it's kind of like having a 3-legged dog, right? It's just not going to run as fast. It's going to be awkward. So that's where the fire framework comes from.
I think the book and kind of your concept is very original. So I appreciate that being out there and sharing with the world. So I'd love to dive in a little bit about your coaching philosophy and kind of what makes you a different coach that people might want to seek out.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the things that I like to focus on is our identity. How do we identify as individuals? I see this, especially in the fire service, and this is kind of what triggered me into going with this modality. I see a lot of firefighters identify as a firefighter. Like that's who they are through and through, and they're nothing else. And if they're not that, they're not anything. Right. And so with this talk of suicide and whatnot, I've learned that when people can no longer identify as that thing that they have identified as for so long, depression sets in, substance abuse sets in, suicide is a threat. Mental health becomes an issue because we're talking about retirees, but we're also talking about people who might be injured on the job and have to go on a light duty assignment. They feel guilt. They feel like they've let people down. They feel like they're no longer that thing that gave them value and meaning and purpose. And I want people to not just have that one identifier. Like I'd mentioned when we first started talking, when we first started having this conversation, I'm not just a firefighter paramedic. I'm an author. I'm a business owner, father. I'm a husband, I'm a friend. Like these are all different things. These are all the tables or the legs of my table, right? And as opposed to just the one thing, firefighter paramedic. And that's what I am. And if that thing goes away, I don't want everything else to crumble. I want people to have systems of resiliency to understand that you're more than just what you do for a living. You're more than what you just what you do for a living. And so if I can work with people to help identify those fire elements that are basically their internal fire, let's identify those 4 different things that you really want to focus on and work towards and become. And from there, you might find a whole new identity as to who you are, what you're passionate about. You might learn of a new passion you had no idea even existed. And that's really rewarding to me. It's funny because, with us, fire is a huge theme. And I literally built the framework out of the word fire. And it's perfect. It's perfect. But it's almost like you're setting these little fires here and there, and you want to see what catches. And when I get to see what catches in my clients and it lights them up and like they are shining bright, it is such a cool thing to see. It is so cool to see because sometimes it's something that they were passionate about before and kind of fell away from it for whatever reason. Maybe they had a relationship issue. Well, maybe they had an energy issue. Maybe their physical ability was impacted and something stopped them from doing that thing. Maybe it's relighting that fire. Maybe it's lighting a whole new fire they didn't even know existed. And it's either way, it's so rewarding to see and to know that the system that I've built has helped them get there and helped them see that thing. And now they can share that fire with other people, the other people around them. And it's just going to catch, it's just going to spread,
Spread like a wildfire.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. That's what I enjoy about coaching the most is just seeing other people, like you say, light up and their lives turn around in, a few short hours working with them. Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. So who joins your coaching? Is it career people? Is it volunteers? Is it people who are already struggling? Or is it people who are just high performers who want to excel?
It's interesting. Initially, when I started the podcast, it was the Ignited Firefighter podcast. And I was really focused on serving the firefighter community because that was the community I'm a part of.
Mhm.
And the more I pulled these resources and learned of these different statistics, I started going outside of the fire service to see how are things going on out there, like in the real world. We have our own little world in the fire service that we're kind of in it. And I wanted to see what's going on outside of that. And so I actually changed the name of the podcast to just the Ignited podcast with Ryan Rodriguez, because I want to be able to use my experience as a firefighter paramedic in how I've been able to maintain resiliency, goals, physical fitness, all the things that we've just talked about. But I don't want to limit it just to firefighters. I absolutely want to serve that community, and I do. But it's actually open to anybody who's interested to learn how to build structures and if I can maintain my relationships as a firefighter who has seen the worst of the worst, and the military people and police officers can speak to this as well. Um, but if I can maintain that when I see the worst of the worst of humanity and medical situations and just loss, there's just so much loss. If I can maintain my resilience and maintain goals and continue to work towards something instead of feeling stagnant and lost, then I want to be able to share that with anybody who wants to hold their torch to the flame. Anybody who wants to hold their torch to the fire is more than welcome. And so I've got clients who are firefighters. Some are career, some are volunteer. I've got people who are looking to get hired on with the fire service agency. I've got people who don't have anything to do with emergency services. Maybe they work at Amazon, maybe they're a teacher, but if they can learn the resiliency structures and systems put in place by me when I had my 20-year career as a firefighter, and I've been able to come out of it doing pretty well. I want to be able to share that, and I want them to be able to use that framework. And if they can put that system into place I'm not trying to demean their careers, but if a teacher could put, for example, let's say one of my clients is a teacher. If they can put that system in place in their environment where they're not having to deal with loss and death and pain and injury and all this stuff every day, they're just going to be able to kill it in life. Like they're going to be able to excel far beyond.
And on the flip side, the diversity of that group, I'm sure the firefighters and yourself are learning something from the teachers, learning
Yeah,
something from the Amazon employee. There's all little nuggets
100%.
from, and I love stealing ideas from the business world, right? Like, why not
Yeah,
bring that into the fire service if it works, right?
right. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. So I'd love to dig into what's in Ryan's self-care toolbox. What is something that you routinely do that makes you a high performer who has survived 20 years in the fire service?
Well, one rule of thumb that I have, I mean, like I've kind of pounded on the fire framework for a while, so I'll put that one aside for a bit because I work it myself. Like
Yeah, awesome.
the system that I coach people in, I work it myself. I'm literally looking right now at my checklist that I have.
Yeah,
I check it off every day for each category. I have a goal. I have a quarterly goal in each category, and then I have a primary tactic for what I'm doing every day to work towards that goal.
awesome. And just
But
as
I
a side
think,
note, I put that into my Kindle as a journal now.
oh, nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so because
Good,
that's
good.
one you can just scribble on it and then erase it each
Yeah.
day, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
or
100%.
file it. Yeah,
Yeah. But my basic rule of thumb in general is that every year I want to be learning something or accomplishing something new.
Mhm.
If I'm taking a class, if I'm working towards a college degree, reading a book, maybe doing a Spartan race, every year there should be at least one thing that I can put on in the journal, or what did I accomplish this year? Like, what's one new thing I learned this year, or one new class, or one new certification I earned, something. Every year I want to be learning something new. And I'll give you kind of an example. When I was going through my own health and fitness journey, I was kind of in a dark place. My first 2 years, in the full-time fire service, I was basically on an ambulance. I was put on a rescue, and I was running EMS calls, maybe even stand-up 24s. And so my eating habits just went in the tank. My eating habits, my sleeping, fitness, everything that you need to be healthy, it just went in the grapper, right? And it was like hitting me like a hammer. It knocked me on my butt. And I took my family to the river here in Arizona, the Salt River, and we kind of played around and we took some pictures. And then I was looking at the pictures when I got home, and I was seeing myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, is that me? And I'm seeing myself hold up my, at the time, like 3-year-old daughter. And I'm like, I can't believe I have let things go so bad. I can't believe it. And it really like sparked something in me to be like, I don't feel comfortable in the physical shape that I am right now to be held accountable to the standard that the public expects me to be able to perform at. And so I started just diving into like things I needed to do with my diet, exercise, all of this stuff. And at that point, I had written a proposal for certified personal training certificates for members of our organization. And the organization I work for now sponsored me to go get my certified personal trainer certificate through the American College of Sports Medicine. And so I was able to accomplish that. And as you know, you can't have a good physical fitness program without a healthy diet. You just can't outwork a crap diet. You just can't do it. And so the next year I chose to obtain my nutritional coach certification. And then the next year I got my sleep, stress, and recovery certification. And then the next year, so it just kind of started this ball rolling. And I was like, every year there's got to be something. I need to pick something, one thing, at least one thing, big thing that I'm going to work on and I'm going to obtain. And I'm going to take what I learned and I'm going to put it back in the pool of knowledge for my organization and for fire service in general. And now basically for anybody who's willing to light their torch. All of these resources that I've accumulated, I did it for myself, but at the same time, I want to be able to like provide that information and guidance for those who are looking for the path. And so honestly, I would say that that's probably been the main driver, is that I need to be learning at least one new thing every year. I need to be obtaining knowledge in some type of skill set every year.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. I'm definitely a lifelong learner and always will be, even well past my time in the fire service.
100%.
I'll be reading stuff about the fire service, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what does that do to your energy? So your E in the fire, what does that do when you're learning everything new every year?
What is it? What is what do I do to fill it? Or
no, what does it do to your energy? Does it fill you
Oh,
up or does it drain you?
100%. 100% fills me up. Yeah.
I assume so. I just want to ask that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great because honestly, as you know, like the one year that I was dedicating towards like sleep, stress, and recovery, I read Ariana Huffington's book on sleep, which was incredible. Out of all people, it was so surprising that she was the one who wrote it, but she tells her story and talks about sleep. But as you know, in the fire service, that's a huge thing, and shift workers in general, and the more that people are using like energy drinks and all of these stimulants out there, it's not just us. Everybody's having sleep issues, and learning about it and learning about how we can establish rituals, set up our environment, all of these different elements really helps aid us in like how we can get our recovery and sleep and stress systems in place. But by learning about these things, I'm pouring into my cup, right? Like I'm taking knowledge from the source. I'm getting energy from the source. And like I said, it could be a religious thing. And I do implement religious aspects of that every now and then in my quarterly trainings or in my quarterly coaching. Personally, right now, my energy category is my goal for the quarter is to increase my spiritual understanding. That is my quarterly goal for my energy category this year.
Nice.
And so my daily primary tactic in that is to read scripture and pray. That's my daily tactic. And I will do that every day for this quarter. And if I do that every day this quarter, by the end of the quarter, can I put a 1 or a 0 in that column? Have I increased my spiritual understanding or not? Well, I can guarantee myself that if I do that consistently every day, that will be the outcome. And so, just like every other category, but the energy one is also very important. It's so interesting because I feel like, and in my history personally and working with clients, we work on those 4 different categories, and there will typically be one that stands out more than the others for my clients and even myself, that I will be focused on more than the other ones, but the other ones are just as important. And it's so crazy how that dynamic is. I'm still going to do the other ones, and they're all important. But there's one thing that I'm really focused on this year or this quarter. And so next quarter, it might change. Maybe this quarter, it's my fitness category. That's really, maybe I'm like, I really want to drop 20 pounds. I want to drop 20 pounds. Maybe next quarter, I want to read 3 books at least. And it just it's dynamic. It's this dynamic system that you can continue to work. But,
Systems.
systems, man. It's all about systems.
It is.
But
100%.
it just gives me so much energy learning about new things and reading these things. It's amazing what we can retain, right? Like we have these computers that have, limited amounts of memory, but we just do not have a limited amount of memory. The more we learn, it's like now it's just a part of it.
Yeah. So you talk about sleep. What would be some of the things that you do for yourself to sleep better, to combat that sleep fatigue, especially when you're doing the 48s?
Yeah. Yeah. It can be rough. It can definitely be rough. And like, as you know, we can sleep while on duty, calls permitting, at night and whatnot. And then I'm a huge proponent of taking a nap,
Yeah.
take a nap. And it's honestly one of these things that was put into my head years ago, when I was taking driving safety classes years ago, when I was learning to drive. The instructor said something to me that I remember to this day. Sleep always wins. Sleep always wins. And he was speaking in particular of do not drive when you're sleepy. If you find yourself falling asleep when you're driving, pull over for 10 minutes, like sleep in your car, off the road, off, in a parking lot, pull off in a Walmart somewhere, whatever it is. That 10 minutes could save your life, and it will definitely save you time. And I think of that to this day. Sleep always wins. If I am of the mindset where like, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'll run a stand-up 48, I don't care. It's like, that's ego talking. That's ego. The lack of sleep that what it will do to you, it will make you cognitively not function properly. It will affect your tangible manipulative skills. You won't be able to. You ever try to start an IV when you're super tired and you can't focus? I mean,
That'd be good.
It's not going to go well,
Yeah.
and lives are on the line on our job. We have to be able to cognitively look at EKGs and identify what's happening, formulate a treatment plan. And if we have done ourselves and the people that we serve the disservice of not sleeping because we're, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'm an egomaniac, we're not doing anybody any favors. We're not impressing anybody. And we're definitely not doing ourselves any favors. We're not doing the people we serve any favors. And so, I am a huge supporter of taking a nap. If you're tired during the day, if it's 10 a, if you get to work at 700 and I've been in acting captain roles here and there. And if my guys, we get there, we do our chores, we do our checkoffs, we make sure we're good. And if someone comes to me and is like, hey, I'm just not feeling so good right now, do you mind if I lay down for a bit? I'm like, yeah, take 40 minutes, take 30 minutes, lay down, because sleep will always win. It will always win. But taking naps is good. One of the things I really recommend is establishing a ritual for bedtime. Establishing a ritual. I like to do the whole wash my face, moisturize, brush my teeth, floss, do all that stuff. And that way my body and my mind get programmed to get ready for sleep. And it's just one of those routine things. It's like we train our dogs, right? But we train our bodies. We call it physical training. And then when we go out on the fire ground, we perform training. We do these repetitive things to get it into our psyche and our muscle memory to the point where when it needs to happen, it just happens, reflexively. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can establish those rituals and we can train ourselves to get ready to wind down. And I know it's tough because we have so much on our minds. And even then, maybe when you're in bed, you can do a box breathe, 4 seconds, deep breath, hold it in for 4 seconds, let it out for 4 seconds, and then keep it out for 4 seconds and just do like 3 cycles of that. Something as simple as that ritual, introducing something like that can make a world of difference, make a huge world of difference. So I'm a big fan of rituals when it comes to that.
Yeah. And they're great in the coaching aspect as well, right? Rituals are a
100%.
great way for people to understand and to build habits, right? Is to
Hmm.
have rituals. And I use rituals all the time, as well as symbols, right? Symbols to kind of jog your memory of, oh yeah, I want to drink more water today because I see this symbol that I've personally developed or put up on my wall or whatever it looks like, right? So
Right. And once you've identified that meaning to you,
mhm,
it's going to help trigger that thing in your mind and
yeah,
completely reprogram how you're thinking and how you're feeling.
exactly. Is the box breathing your favorite breathing exercise?
It's one of those things I didn't realize I did
Mm,
naturally. Like
mm,
sometimes, we get busy doing so many things that I honestly, you'll get to the point where you're just shallow breathing,
mm,
right? And naturally I'll just let out a big sigh. And
right.
early on, like in my marriage, my wife's like, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" Because I'm letting out this big sigh.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I was doing it.
Yeah.
And then I had to explain, "Oh no, it's just something that I do." And so now there's that understanding. But now I consciously use that as a way to help like uh introduce some like relaxation. I'll just purposefully take a big deep breath and then just sigh it out. Even maybe like 2 or 3 times in a row. You
Totally.
get that nice cool flood of endorphins and it just kind of it's interesting how endorphins work and how the dopamine response works because it's like once you and those things working together do such an amazing thing. It just feels like cold water rushing over you.
Mhm.
It just feels so good and like you're ready. It can energize you, but it can also calm you down at the same time. It's one of those like
Yep.
scientific phenomenal things that happens.
I couldn't
But
agree
yeah,
more. Yeah, couldn't
yeah.
agree more. Beautiful. Love it. So I'm curious to dig into Ryan's brain a little bit and find out what kind of support does Ryan need in 2024? Is there areas in your life you're like, yeah, this is an area that I need more support in, and maybe it's not internal support, maybe it's from others. And this is a
Mhm.
question I'm kind of asking everyone this year, just kind of not necessarily collect data, but paint a picture of what is needed out there in the first responder world. So where was be some areas that you need some further support?
That's a good question. I feel like everybody needs a coach.
Love it.
I don't care if you're Tony Robbins, and it's funny because I just listened to a podcast with him on it, and he's like, "I've got a coach."
Oh, yeah,
you know,
100%. Well, I've always been
everybody
told don't trust a coach if they don't have a coach themselves.
exactly 100%. Everybody needs a coach,
Yeah.
and there are certain coaches that I have right now. I have one coach that's helping me focus on my business. I had a coach when I was putting this together.
Yeah.
I had uh, a writing coach,
Right. So
to help
ironic.
me.
Right. We're
So
exactly the same. I had
yeah,
three.
and
I had three at the same time. Yeah.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and and it's like reading a good book, right? Like I've got 3 books I'm reading right now, but I also I have a coach for my business mindset that I meet with every week.
Nice.
I meet with just like this every week, and it's actually a group of us, and we all work together on common goals.
Awesome.
Um, and the framework's even similar. The framework is similar, so it's not a stranger to me. I don't have to learn a whole new framework for it. It's the 4 different elements, but they're his elements. And I had a coach for learning how to do a podcast. I had a coach for physical fitness. You know, I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a certified personal trainer, certified nutrition coach. I know what's going on out there. I'm abreast, just like we have to do research hours for our medic and all of these other things. I have to do research hours for my certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. So I know what's going on out there, but I'm not too arrogant to think that I know it all. I still have a coach for those things. And so honestly, I think that it's just as important to learn something new every year, but I feel like it's also equally as important to be able to humble yourself to get a coach to learn something in a new way every year. And maybe you get that coach for a season. Maybe you only have that coach in that thing for half of the year, and then you get a coach for something else. But I feel like everybody needs a coach. And the more I utilize a coach in different aspects of my life and for the different topics and the different things that I want to shore up, the more I am eagerly awaiting my next coach. Like I want to, because it works.
Yeah.
It works. It just helps get me better in that thing.
100%.
And so I'm like, wow, if it's going to help me get better in this thing, I want to shore this thing up. I need to find a coach for that specific thing. And it's crazy because there is a coach for literally anything, anything you want to know, anything you want to get better in, anything. It could be like, I want to learn how to clip my fingernails better. There's a coach out there for that. Like, so it doesn't matter. You might think that what it is you're trying to do is so arbitrary or so minimal, but it's not. Do the thing, push forward in the thing, get a coach and do the hell out of it and like be the best at it.
I love it. Yeah. Coaching, I've said it numerous times. It saved my life because it allowed me to see the future after being burnt out. It allowed me to see that there was possibilities. There was doors that were going to open. There was opportunities, new connections. It was not me sitting on the couch for the rest of my life being burnt out.
Right.
And coaching was what did that to me, what allowed me to see that. Right. So super powerful. And that kind of what sparked me becoming a coach as well. Right. So and talking about systems, my system is the mind, body, and spirit. So there's 3 things that we talk about.
Awesome.
And it's the mind, the body, and the spirit. So
I love it.
Yeah. Coaching. Couldn't agree more. So in your whole process, what are some of the things you've learned about yourself that kind of shocked you? Writing a book, doing a podcast, coaching, being a firefighter, being a parent, being a husband, anything out there that you kind of, summarize as being something you're like, wow, that shocked me. I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. We have this idea of the people we admire, right? Like the people we look up to. And we sometimes think that, well, those people either have a better set of circumstances or just destined to do that thing. And there's just no way we can do that thing. Once I stopped upper limiting myself, and I kind of grew up in an area, in a mindset that upper limiting was kind of the way of life. Like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that thing. I can do this thing here on this low level, but there's no way I'm going to be able to do that thing. And that's just, me upper limiting myself in my potential. Once I removed that ceiling, it blew my mind as to what I could do. Like this book, it wasn't on my radar to be like, well, I'm going to write a book on this thing. I was making notes and I was writing things down. I was already doing the work, but something in my mind was like, well, you're not an author. Who are you to write a book? And it really, self-sabotage and upper limiting. And really, once I removed that idea that like, I can't do the thing, everything just flowed. Everything just flowed. And it's like, who am I not to do the thing? Like, I've lived this life to this point and have had these experiences that some people have, some people haven't, but only I have had my experience. And therein is the book itself, that everybody's got a book in them. And so understanding that, like, if I can just remove this idea that I can't do the thing, it's amazing what I'll be able to accomplish. It is absolutely amazing. And like, once you get a little bit of a taste for that, like once I got my box of books shipped to me and like, I get to hold it and I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like, I can't believe this is a real product that exists now because of my experience and my knowledge and what I'm willing to share with people. And so it's one of those things where it's like, you've got something inside you, share it. You've got something you want to do it. Like that at this point with the internet, with the resources, with, the fact that you and I are talking on different continents, like anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Yep.
And so that's really been the thing that has stood out to
Awesome.
me, like just
So,
removing of that limiting mindset.
so how did you do that?
Just kind of, and I don't like to say the fake it till you make it. I don't like that. I don't like that idea. I don't like that saying, but I do subscribe to the whole believe it until you achieve it. And it was like, once I realized I can write a book, I can do this thing. Saying that thing over and over again was a very kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's like, no one's going to be an advocate for you more than you. No advocacy for you is going to help you more than your own advocacy for yourself. Um, there have been people who have supported me like you wouldn't even believe. And while it's amazing, it has inspired me only until I accepted the idea that I could accomplish a thing or I could achieve a thing, did it happen?
Ownership.
Yeah. Taking ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. I imagine coaching also was a big player in seeing that bias or the blind spots that you're having. I imagine coaching kind of shined a light on that essentially, right? Is that right?
Yeah, totally. Cause we get that external perspective,
Totally.
someone on the outside looking in and telling us, hey, maybe when you say things, they're a little too curt and maybe you should focus on being a little more, a little more empathetic. And growing up, I was just very matter of fact. And it came off different. And so one of my coaches was like, hey, I'm not taking it personal, but I just want you to know when you say things in that way, it just, people will take it. People will take it. I'm not everybody, but at the same time, but yeah, the outside perspective definitely helps. So that's why I was always encouraging, like everybody needs a coach. And honestly, everybody has the gift and ability to coach someone else in something.
Totally. 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
It's been a real honor to sit down and chat with you. I'd love to finish off with checking out your podcast and kind of letting the world know what your podcast is about, how they can listen to it and watch it, and kind of who your target audience would be for your podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's the Ignited podcast with Ryan Rodriguez, and I am the host. I have guests on every now and then, but mostly it's me researching things, and it's me on my own. I like to research things and what's standing out to me this week. And so I'll take that and I'll do a deep dive on it, and then I'll put it into podcast form and share it with the audience. And it's really like, maybe it's kind of self-serving and a little bit selfish, but it's all topics that I would genuinely be interested in, from the firefighter paramedic side, also from the father side, from the husband side, from the guy who likes to play video games side, from the author side, all of these different roles of versions of who I am as an identity. I take something that interests me in that, and I gather information and I share it. And so that's really what the podcast is based on. One of the most recent episodes that I did was talking about gamifying your goals. And what that means is just having a system where you're either like, you have a series of rewards or a system of rewards in place to work towards and accomplish your goals, and obviously achieving the goal is the reward in itself. But why not? If losing some weight is your goal and you do that, the reward is losing the weight, right? But why not buy a new pair of running shoes?
Yep.
Why not? And
Yep.
why not allow yourself that indulgence? Like it's that added layer. And then the latest episode, I was talking about being proactive with resiliency instead of reactive, because my career as a firefighter is so reactive. I'm literally sitting around and not sitting around, but I'm waiting for the tone to drop. Then I take action, right? I'm reactive to that thing. But why not take a proactive approach? Why not take a proactive approach to being resilient and getting systems in place before you need them, which is again, why we train in the fire service. And that idea of being proactive in our resiliency. So when bad things do happen, we can be ready to face it. And we might take a little scratch, but we're not going to be completely crippled by it. And like I was saying in the fire service, we train for these things. That's why we do training. We train for these events so that when and if they happen, we can be ready for them. So being able to share these ideas with just a broad audience, and whoever's willing to pull up a chair to the table and light their torch from my flame is more than welcome. Whoever it is, if they're a firefighter, cool. If not, even that, like, it doesn't matter to me. Anyone is welcome. Like, my modality is based off of my experience as a firefighter paramedic, but I feel like there's value in that, in sharing my experience and the resources that I gained with others. Kind of like Jocko. So Jocko Willing,
That's the name that popped in my head as soon as you're talking about that. It's like, he's
yeah,
an organization.
he's
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he's my hero with that, because he ran the most successful campaign over there, and then he comes back here and leverages that experience to show people in the corporate world and in any world really, how to become an effective team and how to lead. And I'm like, man, that's great. If I can help people establish systems of resiliency, strength, and understand that they aren't just the one identity in what they do for a living, oh, that would be fantastic. And so that's really my goal. So anybody who's willing to listen and share, welcome to the table. Like, come to the table. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. When you're describing that, Jocko popped in my head immediately. I was like, all right, yeah, that's exactly the same kind of business model that he's developed. Right. So,
Yeah.
so how can people listen to this podcast?
It's anywhere and everywhere. It's on Spotify. You can go directly to Spotify and subscribe there. It's dispersed through Apple Podcasts. I think it's on Google, Stitcher. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find it. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. And how about your book? How can people find how to purchase Own It?
awesome. Yeah. So Own It, Build a Fire Service Culture of Trust and Integrity Through Accountability, can be found on Amazon. It's there's a Kindle version as well as the paperback version. And then I think Amazon just opened up a hardback version for me as well. So I'm going to actually order a couple of hardbacks for myself, because right now I just have the paperbacks, but yeah. And the subtitle here, Build a Fire Service Culture of Trust and Integrity Through Accountability, like I said, is based on my experience in the fire service. And the keys that I kind of share in the book are specifically geared towards the fire service. However, I've had a lot of people who aren't in the fire service buy this book, read it, and tell me that they have applied the principles in their own corporate and even education environments. And it has completely changed how they do things and has helped them in that. So it's not just, I know the subtitle is focused in on the fire service, but it honestly, and just like the principles in your book, they're universal. They're universal. And so it's interesting how you just plug and play.
100%. Yeah. The audience that reads my book is, it's grown past the fire service. It is exploded into healthcare and to just parents. Parents are getting a lot out of it because they're burning out left, right, and center. Right. So,
right. Yeah. 100%.
If you had the chance to, like, if I didn't ask you a question that you wish I asked you, is there a question that pops in your mind?
Oh, you did kind of ask it. What I think we talked a little bit about what's next.
Okay.
What's next? I'm always looking ahead.
What's
always
Q2? Yeah. What's Q2?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited. I have the idea and the notes. I'm working on the notes for the next book. And so that's coming down the pipe. I'm really excited about that. Right now, I'm currently working on a master's program of organizational leadership. So I'm looking to take everything I learned from there and apply it into another book that is geared specifically on leading. But yeah, I'm excited. And as you know, once the floodgates open, things just start pouring in. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
Awesome. Yeah. I think I got like 6 books that are like in the works.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I've got a little note on my phone.
Yeah. My monkey mind, I have structures, I have habits, but still sometimes my monkey mind says, oh, let's go over here and try this book and start writing this book and then forget about this one. So You got to remind yourself
100%.
sometimes too to come back to center and focus, right? So,
Yeah, totally.
well, it's been a real honor, Ryan, and we've chatted a few times, but I think this is our longest conversation. So it's been a pleasure to chat with you and kind of dig into your brain.
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for being a
appreciate it.
curator of knowledge out there and sharing what you've learned over the years, because you're definitely a student of the fire service, student of leadership, student of high performers. So appreciate that knowledge sharing. And yeah, I just want to congratulate you on the book once again, and the podcast. And for everyone who's listening right now, make sure you check out both of those. Is there a way that people can connect with you personally?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you. And I love having these deep conversations. I'm not really a fan of small talk. I'm a fan of big talk.
Yeah,
And
100%. Me too. Me too.
so I appreciate it. Yeah, you can find me anywhere. I'm at Ignited FF on Instagram, Twitter. I mean, if you type Ignited FF, you'll find me. And so like I'm on all the socials. I'm working on switching my website back over to where it was. I switched over to a new place, but I'm not really happy. So I'm going to switch back over. And soon that'll be ignitedff.com. But yeah, you can find me anywhere. Ignited FF.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, like I said, and stay well. Keep doing the good work you're doing, and can't wait to read your second book. So,
all right. Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Until next time, stay well.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.